Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again, here with another reaction to, this time, SAS, The Soldier Story, the Falklands and Colombia. Or Colombia. So let's jump into this one.
The plan was for B Squadron to be loaded into two C-130s on the Ascension Isles. We would then fly across the South Atlantic to the Rio Grande Air Base on Tierra del Fuego, crash in on the runway and destroy all the aircraft. We'd disable Exocet missiles, kill all the pilots and the officers' mess, and then abandon the Hercules C-130 aeroplanes. We would then have to escape and evade to the Chilean border on foot, 40 or 50 odd miles away. It would be the biggest operation the SAS had carried out since the Second World War, but it would be a suicide mission.
Holy heck, man. I mean, the operational experience of 2-2, second to none, up there with the Americans. What a mission to be given as an operator. Suicide mission, this guy calls it. And this is I think I read in there, reenactment or reconstruction of events based on the interviews or testimony, for want of a better term, of the operators that we met.
On the 2nd of April 1982, Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands. 3 SAS squadrons were deployed, each given a specific task. My squadron, B Squadron, began examining options to attack an airbase on mainland Argentina and to destroy the jets which were to threaten the task force. D Squadron were tasked to conduct classic SAS hit-and-run raids behind enemy lines on the Falklands. G Squadron were to form the reconnaissance team, gathering the intelligence urgently needed to help plan the recapture of the islands. In one of the most daring SAS operations of the war, 10 four-man patrols were covertly inserted onto the islands 3 full weeks before the British landings. They were on their own. The main British forces were still on the Ascension Isles, 3,500 miles away.
It was early hours of the morning when we left Hermes. The journey was about 150 miles and my patrol were landed by helicopter 20 odd miles away from our observation post. It took us about 5 nights to reach it over difficult and very exposed terrain. We had to take everything we would need to survive behind enemy lines for at least a month, and each man was carrying about 130 pounds of kit. A lot of the weight was made up by weapons and bullets. If it all went wrong, we weren't going to carry all that weight over 20 miles just to surrender. We were worried about minefields, but there was just no time to check for them. Being lead scout, I just wouldn't have had any idea if I was walking into one until it was too late. We'd be moving for most of the night, and before daybreak we'd make a slit trench and then disappear for the rest of the daylight. I remember once I was already in my sleeping bag, and usually when you're laying in a sleeping bag you're quite warm, but this sleeping bag was soaking wet. It was freezing cold, and I was dreaming that I was actually digging up a road with a pneumatic drill. I was actually shaking like that, and I woke myself up with the shaking. If it's dark, you can get up and do some press-ups or whatever to keep warm. But in the daylight, you've just got to wiggle your toes, wiggle your hands, and so on. Just tense yourself up every now and again so that you can get the blood flowing through the veins. Our feet were in pretty shit state. Some of us had trench foot, and I still haven't regained all the feeling in my toes. We were positioned above the Argentinian garrison and air base at Goose Green. which posed one of the biggest threats to the proposed British beachhead at San Carlos. We were tasked to establish how many troops there were and assess the strength of the defences.
Man, now, I haven't done any research. I have no idea what this was all about, why things happen, what Argentina's role is, and what they're doing. Like 10, I think he said 10 4-man patrols were inserted a good 3 weeks to a month before the main force arrived, carrying enough equipment. It's about 130 pounds. I don't know what that is, 60 something, 70 odd kgs. So the weight is getting up there. And needing to be self-sufficient. That stuff I understand, but yeah, maybe it's something I'll look into. I'll be honest, I don't really care much for looking into the history of it. What I've been the recommendation that come through was a reaction to this, and what I'm hearing is just thinking, yep, that's what life in the unit as an operator is about. That's what you're signing up for. That's what you need to be ready and willing and prepared to commit to. In a wet bag, that sucks. Nothing worse. You don't want to be getting in and out of that again, or in my experience anyway. Like, once your bag is wet, it's just, it's pointless being inside that thing. Tension your body as hard as you can to try to generate the body to create some heat. Wiggling fingers and toes, like during the day, nighttime, you could probably get some push-ups and maybe some squats or whatever to try to get more blood flow through to warm yourself up. But man, it takes discipline, it takes an unrelenting commitment to want to be and do that job, to do that type of work and be exposed in that type of way. Massive respect for these guys.
We were building up a picture for the troops that would actually be taking out Goose Green. In order to get into the best position, it was necessary for us to set up our observation post under the main flight route for the Picaras, Chinooks and Hueys all flying around.
Just looking at that footage, I don't know if that's the place, but it looks pretty open, eh? And so you get an understanding or a sense as to why there's no movement during the day. And then each squadron having their tasks and their AO, or area of operations responsibilities, to gather the intel and information, which can then be fed back into headquarters, and then they can put all those pieces together to help strengthen their plan of what it is that they are going to do or how they're going to attack, and or maneuver an RV if things don't go quite to plan. So yeah, man, a lot of work.
So it was quite difficult sometimes lying in these shell scrapes when these aircraft were using this hilltop as a navigational aid. They came so low that sometimes you'd just be choking on the exhaust fumes. Nighttime was our busiest time. We'd send off our situation reports by Morse back to Hermes, where they were logging all the information that was sent to them from all of our 10 patrols, building the big picture. This was our most vulnerable time, as the enemy could well have intercepted our signal and pinpointed our position using a location finder. In this event, we had no hope of any backup. It would have been a fight to the death.
Yeah, and to the guys' point, we're not carrying that much ammo to just surrender, lay down and surrender. So Morse code, geez, I remember being the SIG on my cycle and having to send the messages, transmit the messages via Morse code using the code books that we had, and the debriefs at the end of each task. Some debriefs were good, messages got through, they were all good, and then some. There was at least 2 debriefs, I think I recall, where some of the messages that I'd sent through were a bit jumbled, didn't make sense. So, whereas I'm still adamant that I sent it through right and that they've received it wrong. But hey, they're in the reality is they're in a warm environment, forward operating base camp, whatever you want to call it. We're out there, it's cold, it's miserable. I probably tapped it too many times or not enough times and jumbled up the message. That's likely the reality of it.
Everything we saw, we passed back in our situation reports. We initially reported that we could see at least 600 Argentinian soldiers dug in, which is a battalion, although they were later reinforced. We could also see 8 Pucara ground attack aircraft as well as a fuel dump. We called in an airstrike on these targets, and it was spectacular to see it happen, watching the fuel dump blow up and just disintegrate in front of us. There was one time at night when we heard this Argentinian helicopter really loaded down with men flying from Port Stanley to reinforce Goose Green. It was flying so low and so slowly it would have been easy to shoot it out of the sky. But that would have risked giving away our position, and we couldn't take the risk. Our fight was with our eyes and ears.
The patrol moved out several nights before Tupar arrived to attack Darwin and Goose Green. By this time, reinforcements had swelled the Argentinian garrison to 1,300 men. Outnumbered 3-1, Tupara recaptured the settlement against overwhelming odds in one of the most bitterly fought battles of the war.
Wow, outnumbered 3-1. I forget which para regiment he said, 2 or 3 para. Sorry if I got that wrong. Retook it against all odds. That's huge, and a testament, right, to the skill and to the training, the ability, the resilience of those soldiers going through that. 1,300 reinforced. That's like a couple of battalions, full strength battalions. That is, and outnumbered 3-1. Nuts.
While G Squadron continued to gather intelligence, my squadron was finalising plans for the attack on the airbase in Argentina. By the time we got to Ascension, we were fully committed to the Entebbe-type raid. All intelligence reports indicated that this was a high-risk operation. There was a lot of apprehension amongst the squadron members about this mission. When you join a force like the SAS, you know that you'll be used as tactical troops, used for difficult jobs, be used for the best jobs, and that's what we get paid for. If you don't like it, you can leave anytime you want.
I love that, eh? If you don't like it, you can leave. That's why that selection process is what it is. If you don't like it, you can leave.
I believe the way the headshed looked at it, we would be sacrificed so that many more lives could be saved in the task force. Just one missile hitting Hermes would have put the whole Falklands operation in jeopardy. They believed if we knocked out the Super E's and the Exocets, we could save the 2 carriers from destruction. And the British Army at the end of the day would have achieved their aim, which was victory on the Falklands. Come H hour, Sergeant Major B Squadron got us all together. His words were, "It's a go. Get the gear, prime the grenades, charge the magazines, the trucks are outside, load up and we'll go to the C-130s. We climb onto the trucks, we sit there waiting. I could see the C-130s gearing up about 200 or 300 metres away. You're beginning to think about the battle ahead. You're beginning to have your reservations, you're beginning to weigh up the options. You hope that your weapon doesn't jam when you need it to be working 100%. You're trying to remember if you can fire the M202 properly. Will it work? Will it blast the jet? Will it do the business? All these things are running through your mind. You're waiting. This is the worst bit. You know it's going to all happen very shortly.
And just hearing them talking through that and the things that were going through their minds, what they're thinking about, likewise, with the Air Force pilots, with the aircraft pilots, the things that must be going through their head making sure that they can maneuver the aircraft. All their checks and balances are done, that the aircraft is good to go, the airframe. What are they going to do if they get, the potential anxiety we could get shot out of the air? All of that sort of stuff, that the different elements that are a part of this operation must be thinking and going through their head. Crazy. And only to a different degree can I resonate with stuff like that as we were preparing and getting ready to go into Iraq in 2003, and then again from the forward operating base to the next holding point, whereby we would then cross the boom and go into country. Similar sort of thoughts and feelings come flooding back as he's speaking and sharing part of their story about what they were thinking.
And then suddenly the OC appears. Brief conversation in the lead truck, and then it ripples down through the trucks. Operation scrubbed. That's it, boys. You're off the truck. Your first thought, in fact, is disappointment. You're so hyped up and ready to go. You just want to do it. You want to get on with it. You want to do the job. And then you start to think, good old SAS common sense has taken over. I finally realised that this would have been a suicide mission. Instead of sending the entire squadron in the C-130, the new option was to send in an 8-man team by helicopter. They were to locate the airbase and destroy the aircraft themselves. They loaded into a stripped-down, long-range helicopter for the low-level dash to the mainland.
Man, that must have been a cool job to be picked for or to go on. And I say that because that's why guys want to join the unit, to go on jobs. And you heard him speak about it earlier. They get to go on the best jobs. If you don't like it, you can leave. That must have been awesome to get picked for that job. So the other one got scrubbed, where they were all going to be going in, the whole squadron, and now they're going with this option.
If there was any problem with locating the drop-off point, they were to be flown onto the border with Chile and to conduct the mission from there. It was a one-way flight. The helicopter crew were briefed to ditch the chopper in Chile and initiate the explosives that had been packed into the chopper floor. As they approached the mainland, the handheld radar warning device suddenly began to ping, warning the patrol and the pilot that a hostile radar had locked on. Now pinged continuously. It was agreed that the mission should continue. They made an attempt to find the first drop-off position, nearly crashing into the side of a hill, until they found the valley where they could fly up undercover, land the chopper, and do a PNG sweep of the area, looking for the drop-off point. By this time, the chopper was drastically short of fuel. There could be no more map wreckage of the area, or else they wouldn't reach the ditching point in Chile. The border option was on. Drop off on the Chilean border. Do the job from there, get out quickly, hit and run. After drop-off, no one knew exactly where they were, but by mid-afternoon the team were already deep inside Argentina and were heading for the Rio Grande Air Base. They sent their first radio message back to Hereford, informing base that they were in enemy territory. The Eagle has landed. But by now 2,000 Argentinian Marines were searching the countryside for them. Patrol was all for carrying on with the mission, despite the huge odds stacked against them. But it was decided by the headshed that the time scale and the distance involved precluded the hit-and-run operation. Therefore, the ops room in Hereford decided to abort the mission. The patrol now went into the recovery and extraction phase.
Far from being lost and bewildered and wandering through the rugged Chilean countryside as at first thought, it now seems the British crew have been successfully spirited out of Chile.
Wow. Over 2,000 Hunter Force looking for you now. You got resources committed. This is 1982. The reputation of the SAS is likely well known, with the announcement onto the scene after the Iranian embassy. And yeah, I guess there's some cool decisions being made by the headshed, it seems to me anyway, in regards to, okay, there's bloody over 2,000 now. We've got 8 guys there. We need to work on getting them extracted and pulling them out of there. But the lads, still committed on their way to target. But yeah, then the orders come through to extract and make their way out of there. This is crazy. It might seem like a lot of false starts. I'm sure we're going to hear more as we go through. I have no idea, like I said at the start, about this particular event and what it's about. So, yeah.
Sources talk of a top-secret operation which led to between 3 and 5 British crew from the Sea King flying out of Punta Arenas, probably on one of the daily commercial flights. Chilean investigators assure the crew deliberately destroyed the helicopter with an incendiary grenade. It seems the incident is so shrouded in secrecy that few people, except senior Chilean Air Force commanders, know the details.
Close to San Carlos, the site of the intended British landings, lay Pebble Island.
I was just going to say smoke and mirrors, Smoke and mirrors with regards to the information being communicated, the narrative being created and passed on, and then left to the public to try to make sense of or figure out what it was. And then years later, I don't know when this piece or this video was done. I should have had a look at that as well. Years later, we get an insight into some of the stuff that was happening and or that actually happened.
Following airstrikes against Port Stanley, Argentinian aircraft had been dispersed to the Pebble Island airstrip. These included Pucara ground attack aircraft, which could have devastated the British forces as they landed. The threat had to be removed, the aircraft had to be destroyed, and the job was handed over to D Squadron.
Well, we had very sparse information, most of it supplied by overflights by fast jet. It was decided, therefore, to infiltrate a reconnaissance team by canoe, which is the way that it actually occurs. A small team was infiltrated onto the landmass adjacent and then paddled across onto Pebble Island, cached their boats and conducted a reconnaissance of the target. The team confirmed that there was a settlement that was garrisoned by Argentinian forces, possibly up to 200 men, aircraft crews, maintenance crews, and 11 aircraft sitting on the airstrip uncamouflaged. So the assault team had explosives charges in standard charge form, and everybody carried their own personal weapons and as large a quantity as ammunition as they could carry. Well, we deployed from HMS Hermes, which had to come fairly close in so that the aircraft could be within range. We flew in very low level and was dropped off onto a predetermined helicopter landing site. We then moved off to conduct the assault. When the troop withdrew, somebody detonated, command detonated landmines. The lads received a couple of injuries. One was concussion and one lad actually got shrapnel wounds, although they were very superficial. They were helped back off the target and everybody made the rendezvous, and then we got out as quickly as possible. But I remember looking back and just seeing a sea of flame. It was a great feeling. I mean, we all knew that we'd done it without loss of life and with a very minor injury.
That must have been a cool feeling, all right. Getting the mission, getting the task, going in and then doing the business, getting out, everybody well. A couple of injuries that he did say, but everybody alive and well. And yeah, achieving the mission, that must have been an awesome feeling.
The diversionary raids were planned to create the impression that there was a large either airborne force or heliborne force arriving to take the interest away from the beach landings that were going to be conducted in San Carlos Sound. To that end, we had 4 separate targets to take on at troop level. We deployed onto unwrecked helicopter landing sites. They put us onto the ground in 4 different locations, and we went off cross-country, very, very heavily laden with equipment. We got onto the targets, attacked them without any reconnaissance, and then packed up, and then had the long march back to San Carlos, which we knew was going to be our final rendezvous point. Having conducted the assaults, I say all we did was deliver the firepower. We didn't even follow up to check whether we'd hit anybody or anything. That was the aim of it, was just to make a big noise and get out.
It would have been much better and lighter on the way out after getting rid of all the ordnance and ammunition compared to the stomping.
It was necessary for us to transfer from Hermes to the assault ships. We deployed onto a HMS Intrepid, which was the marine carrier. We do this by what they call cross-decking, which we got very good at. This means throwing everything on board an aircraft, getting on the aircraft, sitting on top of the kit, flying off to the next ship, unloading the aircraft, putting the stuff to bed as quickly as possible. It was like a helicopter ride. You got on the helicopter, you transferred ship, you got off. It was a habit. And then suddenly, literally the last lift of the squadron out was loaded with the remnants of mountain troop, squadron headquarters, and elements of G Squadron and attached personnel. Suddenly the red glow of the helicopter wasn't there anymore. That unfortunately, tragically, never made the ship and crashed into the sea. Some people actually watched it happen, which was fairly horrific. Luckily enough, though, several of the guys managed to survive that, although the loss was horrendous. I don't believe since World War II we've ever had a loss like that in one go. And even more importantly, the hardest thing to come to terms with that it was an accident. 20 very good men went to the bottom of the sea.
Wow. Rest in peace to those operators, those soldiers, the pilots, etc. Accidents. That was going through my head with a lot of the cross-decking, cross-loading that they're doing between ships, helicopters. I was wondering if there was any accidents that happened. Maybe close calls, but yeah, not a close call, a blinking tragic call, which resulted in a massive loss of life. Great that there were, I think you said 7 that managed to survive. But man, you go through all of that. I think you said it was a mountain troop, and then some other guys from one of the other squadrons, can't remember. Yeah, that's heavy, man. That's sad. Any loss of life is sad, right? But yeah, it does have an impact when a unit like that's so small, like the SAS, loses anyone, let alone 20. It sounds like in one go. That's a massive hit to the units, not just to the units, to the families and friends in that as well.
The crash affected the whole regiment. Most of the lads who had assaulted the airstrip on Pebble Island went down in that chopper. There had been deaths before, but not like 20 guys all at once. It's usually 1 or 2 guys getting killed, but for 20 to be lost like that was just an unbelievable blow. No one was sure why the helicopter went down, but they think it hit an albatross. If they'd been killed in an ambush or something like that, okay, it's still a waste of life, but at least they would have died soldiering. It seemed a total waste for no apparent reason. They were good lads, and they'll never be forgotten.
We were initially sent down from Ascension to the South Atlantic to reinforce D Squadron following the tragic helicopter crash. In order to get to the South Atlantic as quickly as possible, we had to parachute into the sea off the Falklands and rendezvous with HMS Andromeda. After many hours flying, we were given the orders, action stations, standby. So we made our way to the tailgate. I was number 1 in the stick. Tailgate open, you clipped on. I could see HMS Andromeda below. Red on, green go. You launch yourself out into space and you get a severe buffeting by the slipstream of the aircraft. You plummet downwards. You can feel the jerk of the chute being deployed above you. Grab your lift webs to steer. You have to release your equipment, which is suspended by 2 hooks around your front.
I'll pause that there. It's just on 30 minutes now. I was just getting pretty engrossed in this, actually. Thank you for the recommendations, the suggestions. I really appreciate it. If you stuck around this long, thank you very much for your time, your energy, your support. It really does mean a lot to me. So thank you very much. As always, anybody going through any difficult times, hard times, challenges, heartache, just encourage you to keep turning up, keep staying in the fight. Know that better days are ahead. The sun will shine again. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. Take one day at a time. Do whatever it is that you need to do, but keep turning up. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there's a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.